Hello and welcome to the Winners Find a Way show. I am your host, Trent Clark. I am a serial entrepreneur and international speaker, and I am probably best known for a long-time coach in professional baseball coaching in 3 World Series. So I am with my friend and guest today, Joel Gandara. Joel, how are you doing, buddy?
Fantastic. Good to be here, Trent.
Man, I'm thrilled to do the show because Joel and I met a couple weeks ago down in Florida together, hanging out, and just man, as we just got talking, I'm just thought like, man, like you got to come on this show. It's so good. It's really exciting. So, Joel, first of all, to start, before I kind of introduce this Cuban native South Florida resident entrepreneur extraordinaire and one of the most intentional people I've ever met. Joel, tell them where they can find you.
JoelGandara.com. That's the best way.
That's it.
That's it.
And
Very simple.
and you are an author of 31 Days to Becoming a Better Man. And
That's
tell
right.
me where they at Joel Gandara, can they buy the book there? Or they got to go to
Yeah.
Amazon.
Yeah, it's available there. And if they buy it on the website, I sign it. If they buy it on Amazon, then it just ships directly from Amazon.
Yeah.
It's both options.
So I want to come back to the book because first time author, you're diving into this pool, kind of fell into this coaching role because you've been a long time mentor, and you and I first met through mentorship years ago. And to tell you a little bit about Joel Gandara, I was running a pretty prominent mentoring program in Chicago, Illinois, with just some world beaters, right? And Joel on his own dollar comes up to Chicago to go like, hey, we want to do this program in Florida like you're doing it. And of course, we're going to do it better because that's how Joel rolls. He just gets it better, like when he touches stuff. And so, and you come up and you spend some time with us. And, you know, that program is still booming in Florida, now 6-7 years later.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Again, this wasn't like I intended to become a paid coach or start a coaching business. I've been mentoring for about 20 years and I heard about what you were doing and I wanted to go and just learn how to be a better mentor.
Yeah, it was super cool to have you. And of course, I don't recall the date, but I'm sure if you were coming up to Chicago from South Florida, it was a summer month. Is that accurate?
I don't know, but I remember being cold, so it probably wasn't.
Yeah, it probably wasn't that. Well, I don't know. Even in the summer months, it probably feels pretty cold, like
Right.
up there when you're a South Florida man. All right, so let's start a little bit. You're the CEO of Moral Capital, big fulfillment center. I mean, a real expertise in fulfillment, and you've got a bunch of brands in the retail space underneath that. The coaching was an offshoot because of these experiences. Very, very unique process to your fulfillment and moving with these digital age, the digital time, obviously Amazon, Shopify, these brands just continue to be a maven for online retailers. Walk us through like, hey, how'd you get into that? Like, how did that, this is important. And how this is going to make better for your business.
Yeah, and that's why I started in the fulfillment business. It was just for myself. Everything's been very organic. The steps were careful and always thinking, what if it scaled? What if this became a business? But it wasn't the intention. The intention was I was wholesaling at the time, and that was easy. That was an old school business. You go to a trade show in Vegas or Paris or wherever. You take orders on paper. You go back, and then you ship it out of your warehouse. Very manual. And then I had an opportunity to buy a business. It was one of my customers. It was an e-commerce business. And when I bought that, I said, okay, the game has to change here. There's a lot more SKUs, there's a lot more products, and it's got to ship out every day. And we can't do it the old fashioned way. It's not paper. They're coming in through the computer, right? And this is groundbreaking back then. Like, how do I handle this? We had to develop a system. We developed that system. It's worked very well. We continued to acquire businesses. And then we started showing it to people, friends. And then we started getting fulfillment clients who said, you're doing it really well, better than me. I'd like to hire you to do that. So that's how it kind of evolved.
Well, and I think that's such a great, like a natural evolution, right? You are a pretty significant retailer in the men's underwear space, which is really cool, right? Because what most people don't know about you is that people are not going to see you on the street and go, "Hey, that's the men's underwear king of the world," right? This is not your go-to. Or they're also probably not going to see your personal net worth because you were a pretty down to earth, simplistic, like bare bone guy, almost a minimalist. Is that fair?
Very true.
Yeah. So and you're wearing your signature black T-shirt. You remind me. I coach with Coach Saban. And at now the Alabama football coach, and he's a very methodical. Hey, I've got a ton of decisions to make in my day. What I'm gonna wear, that's already laid out and decided. What I'm gonna eat, that's already decided. Like I don't want to think about those. So he's very regimented in those things because they're just taking those decisions out of his day. Can you identify with that?
100%. Even though I don't have a standard uniform, maybe like him or like Facebook founder Mark
Zuckerberg,
Zuckerberg,
yeah.
right? I don't practice anything like that, but my life is very simple. Absolutely, with physical things, with automobile, home. I mean, I have a nice house and a nice neighborhood and all of that, but there's nothing over the top. I always say that if a burglar came into my house, he'd be very disappointed. I don't even own a
Yeah.
wedding ring. I don't own a chain. I don't own a watch. Very simple.
Oh, and by the way, like as a Latin man, right? Like in South Florida, those are rarities, right? Like culturally, like the jewelry, these are status symbols. There's all sorts of things, and you do live in a pretty nice neighborhood. In fairness, okay. So they probably would like to break into your house because a lot of neighborhood in your house have a lot of nice stuff, right? And like you said, they're going to be disappointed. Like they're going to be like, oh
Very
man, like here's another thing that most people don't know about you. You don't have a TV in your house and you do not have cable.
well. We have TVs.
Oh,
We
you do
don't
have
have
TVs.
cable. No
Okay.
cable. So
Okay.
the TV, I do have one thing because yeah, I don't watch news. I haven't watched it in 7 or 8 years. Zero. I don't know anything of what's happening in the world. However, I will tell you this: I do have YouTube Premium, and the reason for that is right before I go to bed, I'll put on a documentary or a podcast. I just like to hear talking, so I put that on. I put the sleep timer for 15 minutes, 30 minutes, so I do fall asleep to that. I just
Mm,
don't do this. I don't sit and watch anything,
yeah,
especially not news or bad things or anything. I just want to hear the conversations, get educated a little bit as I fall asleep. That's it.
I love it. All right. Let's go back a little bit to the beginning and set up before you ever start your business. You're you are Cuban American, man. I mean, and really Cuban born. And for most people in our world, they hear about like, oh man, someone defected from Cuba and they want a better life for themselves. And they gotta I think in people's mind, Joel, they got a ticket on the Love Boat and just floated over and was welcomed armed with oh, just welcome to America. And I don't think that's the scenario. So walk me through, because you're a 4-year-old boy, when your father says, "Hey, we have to do this."
Mhm.
Walk
Yeah.
us through that a little bit.
So I came in the 1980 Mariel boat lift. About 120,000 Cubans came out. It was a max exodus to Key West, and the whole thing was rough. We spent a few days at this sort of internment camp, just waiting in Cuba to be let go, and we weren't treated well. We were traitors, literally. That's what Fidel Castro called us, traitors for leaving the motherland and all of this. Um, we spent days there, no food, no shower, just waiting. Finally got on a boat, a dilapidated, destroyed boat. The capacity, my dad says, was about 70, I think is what he read on the thing. And it was about 150 of us on there. So you can imagine we were tightly squeezed. It took half a day to get here. It wasn't a powerful boat. And there was a storm for about 4 hours. That I remember clearly. I remember being at that camp. I remember lining up and feeling pressure from the military guys over there. But I remember that boat ride because when it went up, I remember I'd look around and it was sky. It felt like you're in an airplane. But when it dropped, which was instantly, it was happening really
Yep.
fast. It was 4 walls of water. And you look all the way around, it was just water. And this went on for 4 hours.
Oh,
When you're 4 years old and you have a decent memory, because I do have a pretty good memory, that ingrains itself. I think
yeah.
about that every single day. In fact, to me, for multiple reasons, I don't know if I've shared this with you before, but for multiple reasons, to remind me of that, to tell me where I'm here, the reason of my why I'm here on this earth. I walk into my closet every day. My shirts are all straight like this, but there's one shirt like that. and it's facing me. And it's the shirt that I wore on the boat when I got here. It's the only thing I have from Cuba, but it's my constant reminder of, oh, yeah, I went through that. I got through it. I'm okay. And now I have this tremendous opportunity to get ahead. And that's my constant reminder.
Mm,
It's not forgotten. It's very vivid in my mind.
mm. Yeah, and I think like it's so impactful how you've used that to shape your life. But and I think this is where a lot of people miss those things because it's not easy to lean into the pain, right? I mean, most of us we get the pain and we go, "Oh, I just want to forget that." I like to run away from that because, and then it's got kind of control over us, right? And you're kind of leaning into it on a daily basis, saying, "Hey, this is going to serve me." And now I've got to go serve that pain because I don't want to return there. I don't want my kids to have to feel that. Like there's a lot of responsibility in a man's life on that as a provider and on that side. So I love like that you use it, and I think most people are kind of, there's one thing about like when I went through like abuse counseling as an adult, really, and I remember going through this in one of the so key terms that I remember was I want to revisit some things from that time. I don't want to relive it. And I
Yeah,
mean,
revisit it to get the lessons out of it.
yes, but I don't want to relive it. So I'm always like stuck as the 5 or 6 year old boy in this situation without control, without all these things. And could you identify with that?
Yeah, 100%. I put myself in uncomfortable situations constantly. I usually, unless I have a passenger in the car, I will drive in South Florida, very hot and humid, with my windows down. Aside from the fresh air that I prefer to breathe, I want to sweat. I want to feel it. I get in the mornings in my cold tub. It's very cold. The water's in the 30s or 40s, and I do that in the morning. I also have a sauna at home, and I'll get in there and I'll let myself sweat out, and I'll drink waters and electrolyte, and I'll take care of my body. But I like being in those uncomfortable situations over a lifetime now, or at 47 years old. I've realized that those exercises of being uncomfortable have paid off in life. I If I just sat in air conditioning all day or in a nice warm house or comfortable, I think that would have limited me on some of the things because I've had some tough moments in my life, and those I've gotten past them. So I built the calluses and I got stronger because of it. And sometimes life gets a little too easy, and I think all of us live a too easy life in the West. We have air conditioning, food on demand, delivery if you want, whatever you want to eat. Everything's really, really easy. And so I want to make myself just not forget. Just like, I played baseball up until my first year in college when I got hurt, and I still have the calluses. I don't play baseball anymore, but the calluses are there. And to me, that's a good thing. Nothing's going to cut my hand. Recently, I was with a bunch of kids. We went camping with my daddy-daughter trip, and something hit my hand really hard. And my daughter said, "Well, you didn't even bleed." And all the little girls were looking at my hand, and I go, "No, you know what? No, because it's all callous. It's really hard." So that's what I want to be like internally too. I want to keep practicing it being tough so that life doesn't destroy me or make me whimper and become a victim.
Yeah. And one of the things you practice being tough is, as a 47-year-old man, most people don't think, "Hey, Joel, you should start doing some jujitsu." Like, this is a pretty young person's game, man. This is like wrestling. It's ground wrestling, ground fighting, often called. And man, I mean, it's physical. I mean, it tests your body, and it's a very physical, emotional, and moral test to a person when you get into these, hey, holds on the ground with somebody else, 1-to-1, and the training is severe.
Oh yeah.
Is this why you chose it?
I chose it because I got invited by a former Navy SEAL, Jocko Willink, to work out with
Yep.
him in San Diego. And I flew out and spent time with him, spent a day with him, and one on one was fantastic. But I had no idea about jujitsu other than I saw UFC one, Hoist Gracie years ago.
Yeah.
I saw that. That's all I knew about it. So I went and trained for a month, and then I flew out to visit Jocko. And then I had such a addiction just in that first month. And now it's been 2.5 years. I'm a blue belt now. Uh, I I get my butt kicked every single night in the academy, and that's fine. But what you said, it really makes you resilient. I'm 5'9", 172 pounds. I'm going against guys who are 6'3", 220, or whatever size. It doesn't really matter. But when someone that big lays on you and puts their force, they're not just laying calmly, they're pushing into your rib cage and they're squashing you. You feel like quitting. And I feel proud that one of those big, very big guys, the biggest guy I think I've ever gone against, at the end of a roll once told me, for the last few weeks, he was visiting from Brazil. He says, I've been crushing everybody, just putting weight and getting them to tap out, submit just from this. And he goes, you're the guy who holds it the longest. And I like that. While I'm in it and I want to tap, I just try to remind myself, you're not going to die. A little pressure right here. Our rib cages are strong enough. Our muscles are strong enough. You can fight this guy. Just let's see what happens and go an extra minute and another, just till the bell rings. Right. So to me, those are the little victories that you get out of there. You take a shower, you go home, you feel pretty good about yourself. I just put myself through something really physically difficult. And I do believe, because the brain is physical, I do believe that physical challenge here does pay off on the brain too. Because again, it's physical. It pays off all over. So that's why I do this.
Love it. I love it, man. So Jocko's a pretty big dude, isn't he?
Yeah, he's not big in height. He's 5'10". I mean, he's an inch taller than me.
He's 5'10". Okay, I thought he was bigger. I thought he was like a 6'2" guy. He's
No,
thick. Yeah, the shoulders are wide.
He's a big guy, very strong. Yeah, he's an
Did you get on the mat? Did you do the roll?
That we ended up, it would be a whole nother thing, but I have a funny story where we didn't. We spent the day together, but this is crazy. I'm the most punctual person you'll ever meet. I get to a party an hour before. I'm usually helping put up decorations at a party because I'm an early bird. I get to everything early. Went to San Diego. My morning was planned and my afternoon was going to be all Jocko to the evening. The morning was whale watching with my wife in San Diego. And the night before, we got a notice, your trip's not 9 a.m. It's been pushed to 10. Okay. And then while we were on there, it was so foggy, we had to come in an hour later, right? So now it's getting, the whole day got very complicated and tight. But my calendar, which I live by my calendar, said Jocko 7 p.m. I told my wife, let's get there ridiculously early. Let's get there like at 5 and check out his place and hang out. And if we can, we'll talk to him early. If not, we'll hang out with him after. And then the phone rang, 619 number, and I hear Joel. And I go, Jocko? And he goes, yeah, where are you at? And I said, well, I know I'm going to see you at 7. And he goes, no, 7 Eastern. It's 4 Pacific. And then I look at my calendar. I go, hold on, Jocko. I look at my calendar. It jumped and refreshed to 4 p.m. I don't know
and you're
how
late.
that happened. That's never happened to me.
Yeah.
And I am never late to anything, ever. I'm so proud of that. I love that I go an hour early to everything. So I go, Jocko, you're not going to believe this. It was different in my calendar. And all right, I'm on my way. I flew. I got there in like 20 minutes. And as I was driving there, I said, Jocko, I feel so bad. Let's put off the jiu-jitsu because I know it's going to spend a lot of time in the morning, at the beginning of the time. Let's have dinner. And we hung out at the podcast studio. He showed me everything. We had a great time. Walked to dinner, walked back. I did not get to roll. And that was the number one reason that I was going to roll with him.
Yeah, that's funny. I was gonna say, like, yeah, he's a pretty tough dude, man. Like, it's no joke. The training. I mean, but it's always interesting because you talk about confidence, prep and reps, right? Like, first of all, you don't want to get in a roll without being some significant physical preparation. Like, it's gonna be hard, right? And then you're not going to get confident till you get reps. Like, hey, man, I've done some rolls. I've done some things. Like, jumping out of the gate with a Jocko on the first roll is probably like a really bad idea, right?
Yeah, but he would have taken care of me. That's the thing about black belts in jiu-jitsu. They know what they're doing, even though the crazy white belt does it, and they take care of you. They're the one to keep you from getting hurt.
Yeah, that's interesting, right? So, okay, let's so through this mentorship, you talk about your new book, 31 Days to Becoming a Better Man. You have a coaching program for that. People can sign up for your coaching program. What's the premise of writing that? What's like, hey, man, do men need to learn how to become better?
If someone ever says I don't have to become better, there's a problem there.
Right there, right there, man.
I've
Like
been
right
working
there.
on myself every day, and I'm going to be better tomorrow than I am today. I'm always looking to improve in every single aspect of my life. I create rules for myself, and I make sure I don't break them. I create challenges for myself that nobody knows that what I'm up to right now. You don't know what I'm about to go do in an hour from now, but I might be doing this challenge. So I've been coaching. I've been fortunate enough to coach very successful men, mostly men. I've coached some women, but it's mostly men. And these are 1%
Yeah.
earners. These are guys doing very well, making a
Yep.
million plus net, making very good money. Some of these guys making many millions. And I've gotten to learn very good habits from them. So aside from me trying to teach what I know, I get to learn as well, right?
For sure.
So that has helped me see, like, it gives me confirmation on the things that I've been doing well, and that taught me new things. And I've been piecing those together, and I've been building challenges for my coaching clients for a long time. So I get to now I created a program. So now it's not just one-on-one coaching. What I've done is it's a class of sorts, even though there's no physical sitting around. What we're doing is a WhatsApp group and a Zoom call every week. And we put a couple dozen men together and we follow challenges. Every single day we'll read a chapter and then we'll execute on that day's chapter. And then we'll talk about it in the WhatsApp at each guy's liberty whenever they're able to. And like I said, we check in on a Zoom. What I found is that I may have a challenge in there today to go unhoard yourself, go into your closet and throw something away physically. And you and I might say, oh, that's a piece of cake. I'll go there. I don't need this thing, and throw it away. There's somebody with some bottled up issues. And when they were a kid, they couldn't let go of things. And it reminds
Yeah.
them of their parent or whatever it is. That's an extremely challenging day for them, but a day that they're going to benefit from tremendously. And then they got this group of 24 guys all looking to improve themselves, all successful. I haven't had one loser in these programs yet. And they get to support them and help them and talk. And some will say, hey, sounds like you're having trouble with that. Give me a call. And I do that too. I'm out here in the group. I'll put my calendar and I'll say, give me a call today and we'll talk about it. And so we're just supporting each other to get through all of this. And that's what it is. It's just becoming better. I think we should all shoot to become better at whatever we do all the time.
Nice. Okay. I love it. Let's come back to the beginning where one of the things you told me, and I want to honor this because like I didn't grow up this way, right? I grew up from a parent. I was the youngest of four kids with a dad that worked and my mother didn't. And my dad had a master's degree in accounting and he was a college instructor and he started his own side hustle, like learning how to, everyone's asking, hey, can you do my taxes? So he just starts a little firm, and I don't think it was, hey man, I'd love to spend my free time on this. It was like, hey man, we need the revenue to feed these kids, right? So we were pretty middle class because he was hustling, so I didn't grow up without, but you're an extremely successful guy, and you told me four words like that I've never heard anyone say, which was, well, I guess it's five, like growing up poor doesn't matter. And you hear people talk about that. Oh, it would have been different, but I grew up poor. Like, wait, what? Like, and I'm challenged by that because when I was in a charity with All Pro Dad, I was always vexed by kids who were 7, 8, 9 years old, and they thought their lives would be just like their fathers in prison, or and I'm like, wait a minute, they made their decisions. You don't have to. I couldn't understand, like, that's them, that's not you. And they were like, hey, that's just is going to be me because that's what happens. And they didn't have those people in their neighborhood as role models. The role models were crap. Like they were going in the wrong direction. And I assumed that because you grew up in a similar environment, the role models were the same. They were role models. They just weren't good ones. So how do you navigate that from there and that mindset to get to here?
Yeah. So absolutely, it doesn't matter if you grow up poor. I think we're in a society that loves to promote the victim to keep them down, to say, "Oh, poor you because of your skin color, because of where you're born, because of the way you were brought up. Poor you, you're never going to make it." Absolutely not. There are examples. The media won't talk about those examples as much because it doesn't suit their narrative to keep pushing this horrible story. And I never fell for any of that. I I am glad that I was born poor, but I think I could have had success either way. For me, it was maybe a little extra advantage to be born poor because it gave me that hunger that I didn't want to be in this anymore. But I always had that positivity of I could probably work my way out of this if I do certain things. And I saw my dad hustle. My parents both worked really hard. They had their full-time job, and then they were always doing something on the side. For my mom in the beginning, when my mom in Cuba was a physics teacher. That doesn't mean she made a lot of money. That doesn't mean my dad was an electrician in a government shop in Cuba. Obviously, no matter what job you had, you were poor in Cuba. But when we came here, my mom cleaned hotel rooms at the Sir Francis Drake Hotel in San Francisco. So
Mm.
she started at the very bottom. She never became a teacher because she didn't speak English. And it's hard when you're in your 30s to come with two little kids and a full time job where you're not really learning the language, you're just folding beds. And my dad would fix people's TVs and just make whatever he could. Then he got a little job. He never made much money. In fact, I was maybe in my 20s, I was already making more than my parents combined, right? They never made very much money, but none of that mattered. In fact, I'll share this because you said about bad role models. The guy making the best money and with the best car in my neighborhood, growing up just outside of Oakland, California, was a drug dealer. I mean, a well known drug dealer. The cops actually walked by before and asked me questions when I was a kid, like, "Hey, do you know that guy?" Or we're looking for him. That's the type of neighborhood that I grew up in. But I could have made the choice too. I did make the choice. I either follow in those footsteps or I do something different to get out of this because I knew I didn't want to be in there. So yeah, I hope that could be taught to kids that the examples of people like myself or many other great examples better than mine that grew up in the worst conditions and look where they are today just by actions that they take every single day. You're not a victim to anything. You decide every single day, every single moment what you're going to do. And I look at life that way. It's always like this. There's a crossroads. Right now, I could have been on this call or I could have not. Later, I got to do this thing or I could not. And I have to think about it. Is it worth it? Is it good? Is it the right thing to do? And take that better choice every time.
Yeah, I love that, man. Like that's so good. Um, and I do think the way you described um, the victim mentality and the acceptance of it, like it's almost promoted. It really is like it's interesting to me because um, rules and boundaries, like even religion, like a 10 commandments, you know, that's awful for you, that's not, but those are guidelines, and it talks about in that book, hey, get this and you will have freedom. And like, no, 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 how can I have freedom with rules? People tell me what to do. I don't want any rules because I want freedom. And man, I've seen so many people take that approach, and they are prisoners of the decisions they've made because it's just about me feeling good right now, and the consequence of those actions just have negative effects, and sometimes even incarceration, right? Because it's today, it's like what I felt like I should do because I want to feel good today, right now, in this moment, without any consequence that I just took somebody's car, I just took their money because I wanted to go out with my friends and have a great time, and you're like, man, you thought you were going to get freedom from that world? Like it's the exact opposite, and they're pushing and selling that, and it's amazing that people are buying.
Yeah. I talk about peer pressure and wanting to get something right now. When I was 19 years old, I got my first like real job. I'd been working since I was 12, but like, oh wow, I started making $7 an hour. That's the most I'd ever made up to then. And I started working a lot and I started getting a raise and overtime and a lot of hours. And so that was when I was 19. At 22 years old, I bought my first house. I put $32,000 down. It was better, way better house than my parents who lived in a tiny little townhouse in a bad neighborhood. I moved away to LA from the San Francisco Bay Area and I bought an actual standalone house, 3 bed, 2 bath in a way better neighborhood. To get to that, to be able to buy that house, what did I have to do? Well, I was making less money than a lot of my friends, and they were living it up. They were having beautiful cars and going out all the time and vacations and living it up. I wasn't. I had to put off that because I knew that I had a better reason, a good reason to do it, right? For me, it was buying a house. You know what I ended up doing with the house? I was 22 years old, no kids, not married, nothing. I rented out the extra 2 bedrooms and I kept the master bedroom and bathroom for myself. Those two guys paid my mortgage, paid my property taxes, they were helping me with a lot of those expenses. And that enabled me to keep buying houses every year for 4 years, every September, I bought a house. And I was able to, all of that started happening. My net worth started growing and I started having cash flow, all these good things because I didn't go buy the fancy car today, because I didn't go to that expensive vacation today. I just put my head down and worked for 3.5 years from 19 to 22. And then I got the rewards. That's a good example of doing it in a short time. Sometimes the reward comes after 10 years or 20 years or whatever.
Yeah.
But that's the point. I had to put off and do the right thing and work really hard to get to where I wanted to be. And I do not regret it. I did not lose out on my youth. Those guys were all getting drunk and going out all the time and doing stupid things. I was just working.
Yeah. Well, I think, from the athletic standpoint, I heard that a lot too. Obviously growing up as a pretty competitive athlete, I mean, I delayed gratification all day long, right? Like, 'cause it was like, hey, man, I'd love to go out with my friends on Friday night, except I've got a big match or the biggest game of my life, at least to this date, tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. on a Saturday. I'm not going out with my friends till 1 in the morning on Friday. I need to be physically and mentally prepared for what's about to happen tomorrow. And so that was just a decision I made. And people thought, like, oh man, what a sacrifice, Trent. I'm like, I never looked at it as a sacrifice. I was like, hey, man, this is what I want. This is the choice that I'm making because that gets me here. Like to do where I want to go here, I got to do this today to get there. And man, I feel like we've lost that in our instruction. Like I feel like we've lost. I had a poster in my room as a kid, and it was like the big house on the hill, and like the 3 sweet cars parked in the driveway, and on the top it said justification for higher education. Now, I never looked at that, and this will probably throw people off. Like, I never looked at that like, oh, I need a PhD in something. I needed higher education, whether I got that from Joel Gandara, the world extraordinary entrepreneur, or the best athlete in the world who could tell me the route that they took. Education comes in all sorts of forms, right? It doesn't mean, oh, I need a piece of paper and a degree to say, hey, I've got this now. Not that I'm saying it hurts, right? Because we know only 20% of our workforce have it. So there's a huge value in that. But man, I've never stopped learning because of that justification, man. Like, get the time in, and you can't take the education away.
Right. Yeah, I agree. For me, standard education in a school is okay, but learning through life, through experiences of other people, through reading and putting into action what you read, to me, that's been way more valuable than anything I learned in school.
Yeah, I think I love that about your book, right? The 31 days. I mean, every day is like take it action. Like, this is awesome that you read that. This is a good message for you. Well, that's great. And probably, and I'm guilty of it too. I read a lot. I mean, I don't know how much I read and am able to like, wow, that's fabulous. I'm going to implement that or execute on that matter today and be able to do it well. Because we go out and we try it and we fail, right? Like, we're like, oh man, it really looked good on paper when I saw it in the book. And then when I tried it, I kind of mucked it up because I really know how to do exactly right. And so instead of like, hey, try it again, try it again, try it again, I'll be like, oh, I'm a failure. I just jacked it up the first
Well,
time, so I can't do it.
that comes from academia, I believe, because you take a test, you fail, and they make you feel like a loser. Have you
You're
ever
not
seen?
good at it.
Yeah, you're not
You're
good.
not good at chemistry because you got a 61%. So you
Right.
could never be a chemist, Joel, because
Yeah.
you missed almost 40% of the time. So you should probably choose something else.
Yeah, but in school that happens. That's the message. And then you got to go take another test in a month. And you're already down because you did so bad because it's all about passing this
Yeah.
test. Life is the opposite. Life is go ahead, fail today, do it again tomorrow. And you failed again. Okay, but you got a little better. And there's nobody keeping track. It doesn't matter. Just keep making these mistakes. And that's somewhat of a cultural thing too. In certain countries, you can't fail. I just saw a documentary that said that there are very few comedians in Asia. Like in China, there aren't very many comedians. Why? Because culturally, it's bad to fail. You
Yeah.
can't fail. And how does a comedian become good? You got to keep failing and
Oh,
bombing and
yeah.
testing. And it takes years. You see a great comedian today, watch their early work. They weren't that good. And then
Yeah.
they refine their craft.
Oh, yeah.
How do you put yourself out there and keep failing when in a culture or an education like it is here in the US, where failing is looked at as such a bad thing?
Well, and I think like even to go further on that, like the humor is in the failing, right? Like it's really funny when you look back and go, "Oh my gosh, look at me mucking this thing up on this video." Like, yeah, I'm really good now. Like, and you probably think like, "Wow, he never sucked at this." Like, I'm like, "Oh no, I really sucked at this." Like one time, like, "What's this stupid crap?" Like I was thinking was a good idea, right? And you're like, "Oh," and you look back and you're like, "Man, it wasn't really that funny in the moment." But now I look back and it's pretty funny, like, man,
That's how
like
life is.
that's how life is, right? And that's so good. So um let's talk about, our show's all about, winners when shown data that they're losing, find a way to win. I love that quote from the Four Disciplines of Execution. And I want to take you back to a time like, man, you have an amazing story, which we'll come back to on the underwear station, how you really got into that. But like you've gone through challenging times, man, and on that business alone, you started with very little. I mean, this is baby steps. This is one thing at a time, and you said very organic, but this is the 20-year overnight sensation, right? Because if someone goes, oh, listen, tell me about 1997 to 1998, and you're like, oh, my growth was this big, like, and I did it 335 days of the year, where and I was moving the needle forward, but man, these are baby steps. This was not like leaps and bounds every moment. I'm just killing it, right? So walk me through the first, one of those big challenges of, developing that.
Yeah. So the first challenge is getting going. Hardest thing ever. Uh, I just found a video that I never put on YouTube or anything, but I found it this morning and it's very old. It's like 4 years ago. And I went on a 21-mile run. And I said in the video right before I started, I said, okay, 21 miles I'm going to run today nonstop. Here's the hardest part. It's that first step. It really is. It's always hard to get that inertia going. Once you take the first step, guess what? The second, third, fourth, fifth, it's all the same. You're just on autopilot. Your body moves. I think the same thing in everything that we do in business and in everything. I hear a lot of people talk about their ideas. And then here's what I'm thinking for our business. And they'll reach out to me. I'll talk to them once. And then a year or two later, I'll talk to them again or run into them or whatever it is. And they'll still be in the same stage. They'll tell me they're
Yeah.
still thinking of doing this business. For me, it's just action. I got to test something. I'm so curious to know if something's going to work that I got to go test it. So for me, those early challenges were getting going. And how did I do that? I hustled all through elementary and middle school and high school, and I made money. But one of the things that I did that led to where I am today was going to garage sales. I don't know if that's still a thing, if that's the thing to do, but that's what worked for me years ago in the 90s.
Yeah.
Went to garage sales. I'd buy stuff that I thought could do well and I'd take it to the flea market. I found a guy selling underwear samples from a major corporation, and he was an independent rep. These were his leftover samples for the season, and he sold them. He sold them for $3. I talked him down to $1. I bought 500 of them, everything he had, cleared them out, took it to the flea market. I made $3,000. Bought them for $1, sold them for $6.
And,
Went really
and this is where you started becoming the underwear guy, because
yeah.
because it wasn't the product that you were in love with. It was the opportunity.
Oh, my wish would have been baseball gloves, baseball bats, something at the time that I was really into. I would have loved
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah,
So my
yeah.
passion is not in a product or a physical material thing or a service. My passion was getting something going, building something, getting out of poverty, getting out of the neighborhood that I grew in. I knew I wanted to
Yeah.
buy a house and I wanted to get out of there. That was my number one driver, getting out of that neighborhood, because I hated every day that I came home from, since a little kid to 22. So that was the motivation. That was the challenge, is to get out there and do something about it. There was an evolution. I didn't keep doing flea markets. I discovered eBay back in 1999 and I started selling on there. And one step, we can cover that if you'd like, but one step after another, it got going. But that was the hardest thing for me, was just starting and not knowing how to start and not knowing who to talk to who could give me the advice to start. I never had that.
Mm.
I just went and tried a bunch of stuff and saw what worked, did more of that. Saw what didn't work, stopped doing that.
Well, I think one of the things now looking back, right, and like you could have been, the CEO of Easton Bats, like a big brand in baseball, like you found this and you hustled with this, but maybe one of the things our audience and people out there don't know is like, there's hundreds of vehicles to get you where you want to go right around you. And if you're only going, well, I need a hybrid that gets, 40 miles to the unit, and I only take it in yellow. And like, if you're going to narrow this all down, like, hey, guess what? Like, it's not going to come in a perfectly packaged with a bow. It's going to be like, here's a bunch of vehicles. And if you want to get there, get in one of them and get moving, as opposed to spending the next 40 years deciding which vehicle you can tolerate.
Absolutely. Just like my first house wasn't my dream house. I just bought that house and fortunately I did what I did. I rode this equity wave, right? Like people have done. Just move forward and get it going. Yeah, I never had a vision of exactly I had a vision of what my life could look like, the house I might live in, all that stuff as a kid,
Sure.
but I didn't know how to get there. I just knew I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to try different things. Yeah, don't limit yourself to this one. All the stars don't have to be aligned. Things don't have to be perfect for you to move forward. And action is very easy. I have somebody who emailed me recently about a business idea that they have, and they took forever. They told me they were going to send me that. Something like 6 months passed by, and then he said, "Well, I just want to make sure I had everything perfect." Well, I could already
Mm,
poke holes in your perfect presentation. And that's good. I want to poke holes in it to help you get to the next
yeah.
step, but we could have done that 6 months ago. You've just
Yeah.
wasted 6 months. Usually that tells me that person's not going to make it. If they're dragging their
Mm,
feet that much and they're not just getting going, that's usually a sign. So if nothing else, to the people who are out there who like to move quick, I commend you. To me, that's the way that we get results.
yeah. And there's this little term called MVP, which is a minimal viable product. And I've often talked to a bunch of software friends and developers, and they're like, if you're not fully embarrassed by the first release, you're too late. like you are not going to get it perfect. Like, oh my gosh, look, it's going to be packaged up. Like, no, this is going to really looks like shit, and we're going to fix it. But like, I got to get it selling. Like, I got to get moving, and we can do. And I always tell people, I'm on Trent Clark version 5.3.0, right? Like I keep bettering myself. I'm a version every year because I get to meet great people like you. And I'm like, man, that's great. I really learned this from Joel. I got to apply that in my life. And so that Trent Clark 5.4.0 is better next year, right? Like, so I'm a better version. And so the software, we see it like, oh, hey, do you got the Apple V12, like the new software? Like, fine, upgrade your software, like awesome. But we should be a little bit, you just gotta jump and you gotta go and you gotta take an action. So let's step to the next one where, I mean, you are a relationship guy and you've done so well. It's probably one of the most things I admire about you, Joel. I mean, you're very intentional, and man, if your kids get the level of relationship that you understand in this world, I mean, what and as a father of 5 children, right? I really honor that, and man, I want just a little of that to rub off on my kids, right? And they will be so further ahead. So I think that's really huge. And you get into this relationship, with a nearshore vendor, and you're paying them, you're building your brand, and meanwhile, they're both becoming equally very successful because this minimal payment becomes a pretty big, significant business. And then the kind of cards all start falling. Walk me through this challenge that you faced.
Yeah. So the facts about it were took a brand out of Mexico. They told me about $2,000 a year in the US only, but they were big in Mexico. And I came along and said, I'd like to work with you. And I started buying. First week, I bought like $2,400. I called them a week later, ordered another 2,400, and then it took off from there. Over the years, I started buying over $1 million a year from them and really growing their position here. I was not the owner, I was only a distributor, but I really helped and I did everything I could to grow that brand, build a solid relationship with the owner, saw him like the rich dad, poor dad type of thing, where he was my rich dad. He was
Yeah.
a huge influence on my life, helped me tremendously to learn and grow. And I thought everything was perfect until my clients, my wholesale clients, the stores that I was selling to, started emailing me and saying, "Look at what we just got from that brand," and they're going around you. They're saying that we could buy directly from them. They didn't count on the relationships that I had built because all of those came back, and they all told me, it's very unethical. We hate that someone's doing this to you. Because my clients got to see how I treated them very fairly. I always intentionally under
Mm,
promised what I was going to do for them, and I always over delivered. That was my number one goal. I built these relationships with them. It helped me. Now, that doesn't take away the pain. It hit me so hard, Trent, when I got those emails. It was in the afternoon one day. I felt like someone punched me in the stomach, but like with a sledgehammer. It knocked me down
Mm.
to the point where I went home that evening and I laid in bed. I don't even know why. It wasn't even my bed. It was a guest bedroom. I was just laying flat on that bed. And my wife said, "Hey, come on, we're going to go to the barbecue 2 doors down." And I said, I can't go. I don't want to be around people. I don't want to talk to anybody. And she went. At the time, we only had 2 kids. Now we have 4, but she went with them. And about 20 minutes later, she walks back in the house and says, "I talked to the neighbor, Jeff. He says, I told him what happened. He said, come talk to him." I said, "I can't. I can't move." She kept bugging me and bugging me. And finally, I go, "Fine." I got up and I went over there. I sat with him in the backyard. And he's a smart guy and experienced in business, 11 years older than me. And he gave me this great realization that I'll never forget. I've since written him handwritten notes and sent him in the mail to thank him years later, just to say that moment changed my life. He said, "Joel, you have good relationships with your clients, right?" I said, "Yeah, phenomenal relationships." And he knows that because he sees they're the ones notifying me, "Hey, this is unethical. They shouldn't have done this to you."
Yeah.
And he says, "They don't know those guys over there, right? In the factory." "Nope, they don't." "Why don't you just start your own brand? This is a sign. It's time for you to start your own brand." And to me, that was such a foreign concept. How could this kid who grew
Yeah.
up poor, how could I start my own brand? That's a big deal. I'm just the guy who buys from these guys and sells to those guys. I had no other choice. I was pushed up against a wall. I spent $80,000 on my first order of my first brand, and I did it. And within the first year, that brand retailed over $1 million, or in the
Mm.
first 13 months. And from there, one step after another, started developing a second brand, a third, acquiring other people's brands. So that for me, Jeff Jordan is that neighbor who helped me realize that and really changed my life, because I felt like I was going downhill.
Mm.
And I could have maybe leveled out, but that got me on a different trajectory that completely changed my economic life, my family life. Everything about my life changed that moment from the worst. If this was a lifeline and this was normal and this is a good moment, this is a bad, those great moments always come right after a really bad moment. So sometimes when things go too well for me, I kind of want something bad to come and shake things up, because then I can jump to another level.
Yeah. I think it's one of the things I tell a lot of people. Like, I love challenges. Like, I love them. I love when people are like, I'm the only one who's like jumping out of my seat going, our vendor just told us we're being fired. And I'm like, this is awesome. And they're like going, no, 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 you didn't hear. Like, it's going to be, I'm like, wait, we're going to turn this thing around. And I'm going to, because we're going to all put all these brilliant minds together and we're going to figure this stuff out. And one of the things I want to jump back into this with you for a minute is, man, the stories we tell ourselves, right? Because what I hear you saying is, no, man, I'm a middleman. I'm a middleman. I went out and I got the product and I hustled and then I got the relationships, but I'm just a middleman. I'm just a middleman. And now you have to paradigm shift this whole thing and be like, wait a minute. Why can't I be the manufacturer? Why can't I be these guys? Maybe not on their level, get it? But like, why can't I be? And it's so interesting. Like you'd been in the business at that time a number of years. I mean, you'd built it up to over $1 million. And out of all that time, like never did you go sit, not even sit, but just envision yourself in that chair.
It wasn't
Before.
until life hit me in a bad way. That's why having a bad situation come up isn't always a bad thing. Who knows what might come out of it? And that's right. I gave reasons maybe why I couldn't do it, and life forced me. Other circumstances forced me to look at that possibility. So I'm super grateful for some of those bad moments in my life, because they really changed things. And this is a perfect example of it.
Yeah, it's so powerful, man. And we talk about that in life like all the time, like how crazy it gets. And I'm always reminded of things that like are such a battle in our lives, and we think like, oh, like no one else really deals with these challenge, and you know, um, and it's just like, wait a minute, like how do you think this is going to shape you? And um, I always go back to James 1:2. Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, when you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let that perseverance finish its work So you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything. Like, hey man, here's the stone. Guess what? I know you think this diamond's going to be awesome, but right now you're like, oh, it's a little piece of crap stone. Well, wait till it gets polished and it gets all done. Everyone's be like, dude, I'll give you $45,000 for that stone. You're like, that piece of crap rock that somebody showed me a month ago? Like, yeah, that thing got shaped, man. That thing went through a hardcore process of just grinding that thing down in the heart of it. Like, it doesn't look like that today, but like these are what challenges are doing to us. And we're missing that because somewhere, and kind of coming back to your media deal, right? Because somewhere in there, like, yeah, you're a victim. You got a bad rock.
Right.
You didn't get a fair deal. Other people got nice polishers and you didn't get a good polish. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is what's happening and we're missing it.
Yeah, and I think it relates to this. One of the challenges in my book is, I don't want to give it all away, but it's about not feeling sorry for yourself, about stopping
Mm,
that, nipping it in the bud in the moment, right? And again, we have a society that loves helping you feel sorry for yourself, not helping you get out of it and get ahead. Just poor me, I'm a victim. So I think it's such a serious problem that I dedicated a day to that, about catching yourself. And I give examples about how you can mess up your day and start feeling bad. And then it leads you to have an argument with your wife because you showed up with a really bad attitude. It leads you to snap with your kids. There's a million things. But if we get really good at catching that early, we stop it. And I learned that years ago from a psychologist named John Gallagher, who helped me immediately. I visited him once, just about frustrations and stuff. One visit. And when went back to him, I said, I've got some amazing news. I used the system you told me, I applied it, and that's what I talk about in that day's chapter. But it's just that it's catching yourself really early. Someone cuts you off in traffic, and that gets your blood boiling. And now you're, especially guys, girls are better. Guys are always, raging and more likely to do that. But then you show up to work and everything's bad. Your boss or your employees present you with something, and all of a sudden you saw it negative. Your wife calls you and you go, I'm busy right now. It's just all bad.
mm.
And then it takes you down this chain reaction. So if we get really good at catching that early, and it starts with not feeling sorry for ourselves. Someone cut us off. Guess what? The guy had to use the bathroom. The guy was in an emergency and had to go to the hospital. The guy is a jerk. Who cares? He's a jerk to everyone. So
Let it
everyone
go.
he gets off has to have a bad day. No, that's his problem.
Move
Feel
on.
sorry for him, not for yourself.
Yeah, I love that. And I think on these stairs, when you're going up, I want to go up the stairs. I don't want to be down the stairs. And I think we're either moving, we're always moving, right? So are you moving up on your line or are you moving down on your line? And that's a one trigger moment that all of a sudden you're going, hey man, you're gonna let that one moment take you 3 steps back, because you can stop that right now and on the next moment take a little half step forward up those stairs, man. Like, don't
Yeah. And there's
don't
a
let this
method.
thing get you.
And it's easy to say these things because we're both agreeing with the exact same way of doing it. The problem is doing it. And here's what I did. Um, I that day, this is before cell phones were as popular. There probably wasn't a note section. I kept a little pad of paper and a pen with me. And that psychologist taught me this like 20 years ago. The moment something upsets you, write it down. What caused it?
Mm,
What do you feel about it? And how do you talk yourself out of it? A guy cut me off. That's actually my example. It really was. A guy cut me off, got me super frustrated. But then number three, kind of talk yourself out of it. The guy's in a hurry. The guy's on the way to the hospital. He's got to go to the bathroom.
yeah.
He's a jerk. Doesn't matter. Any one of those. Why am I letting that affect me? I wrote it all out. One little piece of paper, a few inches big. And I solved that problem in my life. And from that day, I got really good at catching things really early. I'm not perfect. My wife will still sometimes have to point something out because I've showed her all my tricks so she can reflect that back to me. Hey, what about this?
Yeah.
Perfect. Good. Thank you for catching that.
Get your notebook out. So
Yeah.
so let's go that really quick, because that's really actionable item. Like, hey, things aren't going in your direction. Something just happened. Great. As opposed to just letting it stew, write it down, talk yourself out of it. Why, hey, this isn't what you think it is. Like, reframe it. Is that fair?
Yeah. So the first thing is what happened? Just write that down. This guy cut me
Yep.
off in traffic when I was
Yep.
heading northbound. How'd you feel? What did that spark in you?
How did you feel? Yeah.
So feelings. And then number three is where you explain it and talk yourself out of it.
Yeah. How did you feel? And then, yeah, that's, yeah. And by the way, you're probably so good at that process now that probably doesn't take you more than 2 to 3 minutes to course correct. Is that fair?
10 seconds. Seriously, it doesn't take
Yeah.
more than 10 seconds. There's no more writing it down. It's, that guy cut me off. It really gets me upset. Oh, yeah. Don't get upset. Remember, he's a jerk. Done. It's probably 5 seconds or less.
Yeah. That's a big deal. It's a big deal because, you know, if this happened on the way to the show today, right? And then you're the guy who's at dinner tonight at 8:45 sitting with you know what happened to me today? You know what happened to me today, honey? I was on my way to do the show with Trent, and this dude cut me off. And you're like, dude, you're still carrying this 15 hours later. Like, how much of the stairs did you just go down that affected you the whole day? Like,
Yeah, but
you
I'll
can't
tell you this,
you can't
there's
afford
something
it.
even worse than that scenario. At least if you could vocalize it to your wife, your kids, whoever, and say, this happened to me, at least they're going to understand your frame of mind and they can help you talk out of it. Most guys don't vocalize that. They just keep it inside. And now they're a grumpy person. So at least if you vocalize it, there's an advantage there. But again, most guys won't. So they just show up with that attitude. And now everybody, whoa, what's wrong with him?
Yeah, so you got someone carrying around 27 items of the day that they're just that's got them, imprisoned in this mess.
Yeah. And the guy who cut you off, he's fine and happy. You're the one
he
who
doesn't
let it
he doesn't
affect you.
care about you feel bad at all, right? All right. Hey, you've been through these trials in your life. You've been through these challenges. I mean, something like that happens. A dear relationship. Is there something in your life? People are going through challenges, Joel, today. Is there something that you do that kind of puts you back into the framework that you? I mean, you talked about this issue on a small issue, but this is a bigger one. You're laying in the bed. You really can't get over it. Is there something that helps you reframe in a tough time that puts you back on your line? Back up the stairs.
Yeah. So for me, it really was in that I don't know what I would have done that day had it not been for that neighbor Jeff who helped me out and talked me through it. But now, success breeds success. You have a something worked. You now can have that as in your toolbox to reflect on. So when I have something bad happen now, I just reflect back to that day and I go, "That's right, Jeff helped me talk through it." And basically, it was a similar thing. What happened? How did I feel about it? And talk my way out of it and come up with a solution. So that's the exercise that I do for this exact same thing. But I think back on that moment where that neighbor really helped me out, and I apply that going forward with other problems.
It's awesome. Um, I love it. So first of all, Joel, so much like just thankful. I'm thankful for the relationships you've built. I mean, you've always been very intentional, and we didn't really cover it today. We're running out of time, but you're a guy who talks to actually your competitors. You buy people in the space. You're in relationship with them, and you've cultivated that there may be a person you're in friendship with today, and they are 7 years from retirement, and you're building it now that you'll be there when they're there, and hey, like your brand is going to be in a good case, and I'll take it over, and we can apply it to our system. And I love that about you. And your formula success, I love it. The 31 days book, I mean, we're so excited about getting into that. That's gonna be awesome. And to stop it, like just taking that moment to stop. As I was thinking about our time, this week, and from meeting, I was reminded of this quote. And let me go back to my quote here. Is man, I think I lost it. It was from Winston Churchill, and I was just immediately taken back by the optimism. Right, the pessimist sees difficulty in every opportunity. The optimist sees the opportunity in every difficulty. And I was like, man, that really describes you to for me, Joel. And I'm just thankful you could join us today, man. And I can't wait till next time, buddy. Like, it's so good. So for the Winners Find a Way show, thank you to Joel Gandara for joining us, man. Super excited coming to you live from South Florida and his fulfillment center. And just really appreciate Joel, really appreciate and honor the relationship, buddy.
My pleasure, Trent. Great to spend time with you.
Thanks, man.